Well, a hallucinogen literally is something that makes you hallucinate. So ideally, my music has the same effect on the brain as a hallucinogenic drug. It makes you hallucinate, it stimulates all those little brain cells and tickles the mind in all the right places. Have I always been a muso? I've always loved music. My grandfather was a composer in the 40s, and very sadly he died before finding out that I was ever musical. But maybe it's in my blood, but there was always music in my house growing up. I always loved music, my parents were playing music. I always wanted to be in a band and then wanted to work in a studio. And so yeah, it's been something I've been into my whole life.
So school bands, any bands?
Yes, plenty of school bands, pretty much all of them dreadful.
Really?
One was called Paranoia, which was pretty dreadful. I started off on keyboards, then taught myself a bit of guitar. I was always the really annoying guy in the band who would sidle up to the other musicians. Oh, come on mate, let's have a go on your guitar. Oh, let's have a go on your drums. And gradually picked up all the instruments doing that. I was in a sort of ambient dub band called Jackpot Billywinkle, and that was probably the most fun. And then now it's all sort of electronics. A new Hallucinogen album.
Hallucinogen 3, you can have time to fit that in?
I hope so. I mean, I do keep starting work on it and then getting distracted with these other projects like Younger Brother, Shpongle, doing gigs.
You're a bit more inspired now, a bit more excited about it than you have been in the past.
I am inspired now because the trance scene, there isn't a lot of great trance to my ears. It is a very boring genre at the moment. There's a lot of stuff that really sounds the same, and people are sort of trying to do the same sounds, the same synths, the same rhythms and the same BPMs. And so for me to work, what I really need is a challenge as an artist. When I first started doing Hallucinogen, what interested me was the challenge of trying to make trance music. I'd never really even got into electronic music. And then I was hearing the IQ stuff, Heart House, those sort of German labels, and I thought, I want to have a go at this. And the reason I haven't done a Hallucinogen up to now is because I haven't really sort of thought of anything I particularly want to do.
So do you think now you've got a few tricks up your sleeve? And
there'll definitely be a few tricks. Yeah, one is always learning as an artist, and if I can challenge myself, then that will inspire me to do the album. So there's plenty more new technology now, and just the fact that people aren't using it well enough to my ears in the trance scene is enough to inspire me to have a go again myself.
And what sort of tempo do you think will be sort of 145?
All tempos. Well, 145 BPM is sort of the standard tempo of trance at the moment. Most people make their tracks at 145 BPM. And so a whole album of that to me is pretty boring, unless you're making an album only for DJs. So mine will span lots of tempos, a bit more like Shpongle does. I don't think LSD itself isn't really a substitute for a religion. I don't know if that's strictly what the guy was saying either. But it does seem to sort of have a very cult following. The trance scene is sort of, there does seem to be a sort of a general spirituality attached to it. People do sort of, I don't know, how can I put this? Whether it's right or wrong or not, people do seem to find some kind of spirituality in the music. I mean, I don't know if I'm a spiritual person or not. It's never a conscious thing for me to put spirituality into the music, but there does seem to be a united sort of belief system and a sort of friendly kind of loving vibe in this scene. I don't know if that's a replacement for religion or if even spirituality is the same as religion. Probably not. But I don't know really what else I can say about that. I do try to make it musical and not just for the dance floor. I do try and make it so that you can listen to it at home, whereas a lot of trance perhaps is only for the dance floor. I would like it to be listenable at home also.
So what do you think you'll be up to for the next 10 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years' time?
Hopefully a lot more giggling and laughing. I've certainly had a lot of giggling and laughing over the years, and if I can have even 5 years more, I'll be happy. All those answers, I would have to say, are Japan. I love playing in Japan.
Why?
I love the Japanese people. I love the fashion, the culture, the food, everything about it. We've got the Younger Brother album, the Metal Sharon, which is me, Merv from Eat Static. That's kind of sort of been on hold because we keep playing answer phone ping pong and missing each other's calls, and then getting diverted with other projects, but hopefully we'll get that back on track. Metal Sharon, and maybe some Shpongle things. I mean, we did say no more Shpongle, and it does work as a trilogy. I like the idea of 3 albums as a trilogy, but I wouldn't rule out another Shpongle.
What about a Shpongle gig, perhaps?
Well, yes.
This side of the world, for a change.
I do want to do, I mean, we have only really done 2 proper Shpongle gigs, both in Japan. Israel didn't really count because, like I said, I don't like gigs when they don't have the right equipment and all that kind of thing, so that was difficult. But I would like to do 1 Shpongle this side of the world, film it, record it, probably in London next year, perhaps. Yeah, I mean, also messing around with some Hallucinogen stuff. I might come up with some chill out stuff, and I'm open to all kinds of music these days. Before it was strictly only trance, and now, you know, I really like just sort of having fun in my studio and messing about, playing around, seeing what I come out with. My favourite track out of everything I've ever done would have to be And the Day Turned to Night by Shpongle.
Me too.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you like about it?
What do I like about it?
Yeah.
Well, it's 20 minutes long, but it doesn't sound like 20 minutes long.
That is one of my favourite things about it. The fact that it
seems to be over in about sort of 6 minutes. It seems like it's about a 6 minute long track.
Yeah.
And there's so much in there.
When I did that track, I just felt such a feeling of accomplishment, and just, you know, to write a 20-minute track in those days as well is quite a hard feat. It wasn't the same kind of quality of hard disk recording and equipment that you have.
Content gone into that one track to make a whole album there.
There are a lot of sounds in it, it's true. I hear what you're saying. It's very busy.
You almost stretch it out.
And there are, in fact, I was listening to that the other day when trying to do the menu for this DVD and taking some of the sounds from it. And I've really inspired me to do a remix of that track. I think if we do a Shpongle DVD, perhaps, then I may well do a remix of that, maybe for the menu. That's definitely my favourite track out of all the things I've done. I mean, I was so pleased when I'd done it, and often when you spend all that time working on a piece of music, you play it back, you don't want to hear it again. You've heard it so many times. Whereas that one, I just couldn't help listening to it over and over again. I was just really chuffed. I think the mood of it, the emotional content, the atmosphere, all that sort of Indian atmosphere at the beginning, the effects processing, for me at the time it was a new level. It's something we can maybe surpass now, but at that time it was as cutting edge as I could have done. Okay, I've got one. One of the strangest things, again, Japan, I keep referring back to Japan, I do love it there, but one time we were playing for these promoters, and they sent us off to someone's apartment, and in Japan there is sort of very little crime in terms of stealing and things like that, and people can leave their apartments open, and it is sort of a very nice quality of the society there. So anyway, we go to stay in this Israeli guy's apartment in Tokyo, and it's myself, I think GMS are there and their girlfriends. There's about 6 of us, and we trek across town with all the suitcases and everything and trying to find this apartment. We get there, it's on the 4th floor, we go in, the door's open, and we go into this guy's apartment. And every apartment in Japan is tiny. and this was no exception. But even so, I'd met this guy a few times, and I thought, wow, I really misread this guy. I mean, he's Israeli, Japanese, speaks English, but there weren't any books at all. Certainly no Hebrew books or no English books. Everything seemed sort of quite Japanese and bizarre. He had a PlayStation game, I remember, called Virtual Horse Breeding, which doesn't sound like a lot of fun. And so we spend all afternoon in this apartment, and we're calling all our friends and the promoters, come and pick us up, yeah, we're here. And hours go by, no one turns up. And we're thinking, what's going on here? This is very strange. They said they'd be here in 20 minutes. Now 3 hours have gone by. And by this point, you know, the other DJs are getting quite pissed off. The girlfriends have done all the laundry, slept in his bed, made ourselves completely at home, left a load of hair in his shower plug hole, and been smoking. And anyway, the promoter eventually turns up, completely ashen-faced, says, "What the hell are you doing? This is the wrong apartment. What are you doing here? Whose house is this?" Turns out we'd gone onto the wrong floor. This is the 4th floor. The apartment we were supposed to be in was on the 5th floor. And so we were in some poor Japanese guy's little apartment. He would have got home from work that night and thought...
Something I didn't know about you.
He would have got home that night and thought, oh, what strange thieves. They've come into my house, they've slept in my bed, used all my clean towels, left a mass of hair in the plug hole, but not stolen anything, left a big pile of cash on the table, and just left.
Extraordinary.
Do you not know that one?
Fantastic.
That was Vision Quest. For me, I would say spike stent. It's an easy question. When I was a young, impressionable tape-op at Virgin, Spike Stent did the most incredible mixes of any project that came in. He just mixed it. Everything sounded so big, so fat, whether it was the KLF, James, I don't know what he does now, everything from the Spice Girls to Janet Jackson, but you know, probably his cooler stuff where he has more fun is Massive Attack and Bjork and stuff like that. But you know, whether he's working on a commercial project or something more cool like that, it always sounds just fantastic, I think. He is a great, great engineer. It initially started, we didn't know we were going to be a band called Younger Brother. We were asked to do this, a track for, was it Survival International?
A charity called Survival.
And it was about a tribe called the Kogi tribe. And they see themselves as the protectors of the planet Earth, and they spend their lives making offerings to the Earth and generally sort of doing good stuff.
Yeah. Look up www.kogi.com.
How did we get it? I can't remember.
No, we got asked to do that for them, to do a track about that tribe, and they call themselves the older brother because they're wise, and the rest of the world are silly, and they're called the younger brother. That's not, we just like the name, not that we think we're silly, and so we took the name, and for that single track, and at that point it was for a one-off charity compilation. And in fact, that one first track has probably got the essence of Younger Brother in it, as much as any track, which is pretty cool. It's called Evil and Harm. And if you want to know what Younger Brother sounds like, that track kind of sums it up. And we went from doing that to doing just, let's do another track for another compilation, I think for a Twisted compilation, which was Backroom Beats. And from that came an album slowly. A lot has changed, which has changed. I think the last Younger Brother album was at the sort of watershed point between home studios, not home studios, project studios, whatever you call them, being limited in that your audio is basically your sampler, which had a very small memory. You're talking about 32 meg or something. The bit of audio was coming through on the computer, audio playback. So basically you have to construct stuff much more by making little loops, putting it together, which is very much sort of dance music way of doing stuff.
And the rest was all synthesizers.
The rest was all synthesized, being played in real time off MIDI, controlled by MIDI. And in the last few years, it's all become, you can chuck whatever you like inside a computer, piles and piles of information, and then edit it.
So we can now play lots more guitars, bass, real drums, anything we like. We don't have to just sample little bits. But also, in the same way that you say that technology has progressed, also in many ways it's actually a hindrance, because now you have so much choice that you can really get lost down the rabbit hole of choice and just keep going on and on forever, clicking that mouse until your finger falls off.
Endlessly throwing more stuff into the computer than you've then got to edit, and you find it can take days. But generally it's a good thing, as long as you're disciplined and know what you actually want to do. The technology's made it much better.
So is it easier to write tracks now?
I wouldn't say it's easier. There are more possibilities, and maybe your imagination is sort of the only limit, really.
I think it suits us much better because we play instruments, not very well particularly, but we can play them. We can play guitars and drums and bass, and so you don't just have to think, right, I'm an electronic musician, so I sit on analog synths making noises to a click track and that's it. It's much more, anything you want to do you can get in. So if you've got a clear idea of what you're trying to do, it's better.
We've even got Benji singing on this album.
No, it's not me. It's not me. You can try and guess when you hear the album which bit of it's me. It's pretty But
blurred.
it
is you singing.
But it is me.
Originally.
Free twisted mug to the person who can work out which bit's me singing on the new album.
There's been a few rumours on the internet that you're sitting down, then you go into the front room, watch a bit of TV, turn the sort of PlayStation on or whatever, and start playing Tekken, and the winner has to make the next.
No, the loser.
The loser, that's right.
On the first album, the loser had to do the next bit of arrangement.
That is true. It wasn't Tekken. Our game of choice is SSX Tricky, the snowboarding one. It's now ping pong on the Xbox.
But we've been more disciplined now. Now that was the first album. Now it's not as much computer games going on as there was.
It used to be more of an excuse for me not to work because it was my PlayStation.
So it wasn't a very productive way of making music.
Not really, and it was my PlayStation, so I initially was better at the game. So
then I got
if I didn't want
so it was suddenly poo-pooed and there was no.
If I didn't want to work, then I could beat Benji, and then he'd have to sit at the computer for the next few hours as his punishment. But then if I actually felt inspired and felt like working, then I could pretend to lose.
That's not true.
That is true. By the end, then it got so that you were beating me, and I was thinking, oh no, I really don't want to work. I'm feeling so lazy.
Yeah.
And he'd beat me. So that's why the album's so bad.
So tell us a bit about the music that we can expect on the new album. Have you got a title for that album yet?
No, we haven't even got a title for most of the tracks.
Most of the tracks are untitled. We've got Third Track, we've got Chester. They're all untitled. So it's probably at the end we're going to come up with some ridiculous concept that links them all together, but I hope not.
Clutching at Straws. That might even be the name of it.
So there's lots of live instruments.
Yeah.
There's vocals.
There's live drums, live bass, live guitar, vocals, live synth playing, sequence stuff, everything.
It's basically a band, isn't it? It's not really an
Some of it sounds like a band, but sort of electronically processed. Even the sort of the live stuff that we play does get very processed until it sounds like an electronic band more.
So pretty much a constant line between what's come out of a computer, a plug-in, to what's come from somebody playing an acoustic guitar, because everything gets manipulated. So some of it might just be a straight guitar that you've left and just recorded into the computer and just compressed it or EQ'd it a bit and left it like that, and then you might have a bit of guitar that's had just an effect, and then other bits be completely chopped up so they'd sound to a listener just like a bit of electronic instrumentation. So that's what it's like nowadays. Everything's sort of blurred.
All the boundaries are blurred. We can basically do anything with anything. Change a tambourine into a liquid drop of nectar, or a guitar into a screaming synthy sort of lead thing.
I still can't sing very well. I still can't sing though.
But he lost the PlayStation game, so he had to sing as his punishment.
We did play a game for that.
The last track, we were sort of quite inspired by the Pink Floyd one, having just bought the Pink Floyd DVD.
Yeah. So we've got some slide on there, and
I would say your guitar playing reminds me a little sort of Radioheady.
I'm a
stuff.
big fan of Radiohead, but I've not been able to persuade Si yet. He still thinks Tom York sounds like he's moaning.
I love moany singers. I used to be a big Cure fan.
Both really like the Cure. It's not been that much electronic music that's inspired us, and I can't remember us being in the studio during the making of this album and having during the first album we'd be pulling out the odd other trance act or a left field track or an underworld track and go,
Let's rip it off.
Let's rip that off. It always turns out like something completely different, but this track, there hasn't been so much of that. I think it's been more diverse, all kinds of different bits of music have been thrown in the pot and abused and turned into something else.
The influences this time are probably more subconscious, I would say. We just play around with the computer, play around with the instruments and see what happens. We haven't really gone, okay, listen to this record, isn't it great? Let's try and do something like that.
It's evolved more of like an album as well, I think, because the first album, as we said, was more started off just putting tracks together for compilations that then was put together into an album. This was always, let's start the second album. So I think it sounds more cohesive. I hope.
So what do both of you think about this whole MySpace business, myspace.com, and sort of music downloads in general? Is it good for artists and bands and the music industry?
Well, is what good in particular? There's many different aspects of it. I mean, I like that people can sort of download music. I do it myself. It's a pity the quality isn't always as good as perhaps the artist or writer intends. And also it's a shame that a lot of sort of young struggling artists maybe don't get as much money as they'd like from spending. Was that your chair or was that your body?
It's my back, sorry.
It's maybe a pity that the artists and writers don't get as much money as perhaps they deserve from spending hours and nights working on their computers and struggling, getting back problems and repetitive strain injury.
Ben, did you spend much time on the net? MySpace? Have you got a MySpace page?
We got younger brother, MySpace, check it out.
What's the address?
I can't remember actually. But I think it's one of those things, if you embrace it and you really go for it, the scope today is unlike ever in the history of recorded music if you go for it with it. But if you sit back and wait to get a big record deal and some A&R man make you a millionaire, then it's a nightmare. And it won't happen. Certainly hasn't happened to us anyway. So, but if you take it on board and you want to really kind of do everything, think about the visual way you put yourself together, the way you want your music to come across, the imagery of your whole thing, you can really do it yourself and with a few friends. So the scope is really, there's going to be some bands, maybe us in the next few years, that really put together something interesting, which couldn't have been done a few years ago. At the moment it's a bit of a mess out there on the web, but it's...
One of the benefits are that everything is more accessible to people, but that is also one of the downsides, because just as all the good stuff is now accessible, so is all the dross.
Yeah, as a music lover, you've got to do a lot of research into... There's a lot out there, and as is always the case, 99% of it's
rubbish.
Poo. God, that's a tough one. Bin Laden's would be quite good. Get a lot of insight. There's a lot of stuff I'd like to know about him, which you'd never hear unless you read his diary.
Oh, like, woke up, had beans on toast.
Had beans on toast, hid in my cave again. It's getting a bit damp in here. Must be winter.
Bored of these rocks.
Yeah, that damn bush. Gonna get him.
Or do you not prefer to read Bush's diary?
You doubt he could write one. It'd be like a sort of kid's diary. Had milkshake, was good, spelt W-O-Z. Which would you like to read? Yeah.
I'd like to read my girlfriend's diary to see if I'm really as unpleasant and difficult as I imagine I probably am.
My wife keeps a diary and she's written it every day for the 10 years I've been with her, and I've never cracked the code of it.
So you have tried to read her diary?
I try all the time. I'm a terrible code breaker. I can't get past it. And she keeps telling me it's very simple. I get little bits worked out and then she changes it. So I need to give it to somebody at MI5 or something and get them to break it. If I ever could do that, I would. I'd steal them and find out the truth about my last 10 years, what she really thinks of me. Probably doesn't ever write about me, so...
Exactly.
Disappointed.
Would that hurt more?
That'd be gutting if she never had any comment about me, but that wouldn't happen. She'd have lots to say about me. All bad.
The greatest invention of our time. Well, it's probably not. The one that springs to mind is a computer, because I spend so much of my life on the computer. But I'm sure that's probably not the greatest invention of our time.
Well, I'd say it probably is. In terms of the thing that most affects our day-to-day life.
About the wheel.
That's not our time, is it? I could say the written word. They're the human's quite a good one.
About consciousness. Is that an invention?
Somebody must have invented it.
Who?
Well, I don't think it was the Monkeys. Suddenly thought, look...
Or the band in the 60s.
The ape, I don't think he suddenly thought we're not good enough, let's invent a better version. So I would say, I don't know who invented it. That's too deep.
It's too deep for one DVD.
Yeah, gosh, we could go on that for hours. You really need to ask those sort of questions late into a younger brother session, 6 in the morning, then we'd really answer that. I think
when we'd have lost consciousness.
Yeah, dribbling Studio Rex. That's when the truth comes out. What was I do to make me very happy? So many things they could do that would make me happy. Pay my studio rent. Make life easier, but not necessarily happy.
Buy me an SSL. If anyone does want to buy me an SSL, please don't let me stop you.
Contact Funky Junk at proaudioeurope.co.uk.
Or just send me the cash.
50 grand. Get a free album if you do that.
A free CD.
Free CD.
In exchange for an SSL mixing desk.
Well, every moment with Shpongle is a favourite moment, really. It's one continuous favourite moment. It's so enjoyable. It's seamless delight. But if you want to isolate it, just to make a little news clipping or something, a couple of things come to mind. One, I think the very first time we played in Japan, and it was on the base of Mount Fuji, the holy mother mountain of love. Beautiful place, beautiful setting, and we played dawn, and the mountain was reflected in a lake, and the moon was up, it was a full moon, and we came out in our robes, and Hariom, and the singers, and the guitar players, and the cellists, and it was just a magic moment to hear Shpongle live for the very first time as the cellist picked up his bow and ran it across the strings, and the magic of the music came to life, and that was very special. Well, Shpongle, there was no beginning and no end. It was sort of something that was there, that was just discovered. It was like walking in a magic forest and all of a sudden looking under a tree and finding a bucket full of gems. And I met Cy, and we decided it would just be a good idea to do it. We'd gone to Glastonbury and spent 3 days just hanging out together and just walking, not sleeping, sitting by the fire, going to see a million different things. And when we finished with that Glastonbury, we had a session booked at Dragonfly, and we went in and did Rumours of Vapors, and that was the first Shpongle track. But the very name Shpongle, you were going to ask me, Si, where the name Shpongle came from. And I was at a party one day, and someone said early in the morning and go, "How are you feeling?" And I said, "I feel Shpongled." And this word just came out of the atmosphere, and then it was like Shpongle was a new word. And it just became part of our vocabulary, and that's how that sort of word, it was definitely channeled. There's no other word in the English language except Mongol and dongle that rhyme with it. And it's just a unique word, but it's one of those words, funnily enough, right around the planet, whether it's in Japan or Brazil or anywhere, they can pronounce this word. Other words, they have the funny accent, but when they say Shpongle, whether they say it in Bhutan or Bolivia, Shpongle comes out of Shpongle. So when you go up to people in the streets and say, "Are you Shpongle?" or "Let's get Shpongle," or "Let's keep on Shpongling," they understand what you mean. Okay. And as far as the next album goes, we weren't going to do any more albums. After the third album, Si and I agreed that the trilogy was finished. The Lord of the Rings, 1, 2, 3. You can't squeeze the lemon anymore. But at the end of that, when we really went away and I sat in the forest and people would come up to me and birds would whisper in my ear, "When is the next Shpongle?" And I said, we have to bow to pressure. We have to bow to the cosmic forces. Shpongle is coming. We can feel it. It's like a giant vibration rushing through us, but very quietly. But we're going to commence the album, I hope, in the spring of next year, and hopefully be ready maybe in 2008. Who knows, depending on who holds the gun to our head. But we're going to work on it and treat it like a lovely newborn baby and raise it and then introduce you.
What's your favourite Shpongle track thus far?
Well, I have to say, and I'm happy to say this, that the very last thing that Si and I did in the studio together happens to be my favourite track. It's probably nobody else's favourite track, but it was the track called Nothing Lasts, the title track off the last album, Nothing Lasts, but Nothing Is Lost. For me, this track encompassed such a wide spectrum of music, not just ambient and not just Shpongle music, but it actually went into sort of jazz, and it went into classical, and it went into all the references and experiences that I sort of had in my life, and somehow Si managed to put all those things together and make it one homogeneous fungi that was growing and bursting into blossom. And this is a piece of music that's extremely psychedelic. There are sounds in there that I don't know, it sounds like jellyfish making love at 2,000 fathoms in Technicolor. I mean, this is amazing, deep, cerebral music. Where it comes from, I've got no idea, but it really tickles my fancy, and that's probably the direction. I don't know where we're going to go for the next direction. I promise you Shpongle 4 will certainly be different from, as all the other ones were different from each other. Collaborate with, well, all of the Twisted artists, basically. They've got the good stuff. Yeah, Twisted have got the good stuff. Big respect to Twisted for holding their focus like a candle in a windless place. They've had this vision for 10 years of bringing really sophisticated, psychedelic, new age, pump age into this beautiful time that we're living and experiencing, and they have had the guts and the tenacity to hold on while thousands else have floundered and gone bankrupt. Si holding the flag high, marching towards that golden sunset, a warrior. We respect that. The money shot question is the one you won't ask, thank God. I'm so happy. Well, it's only 2 subjects that everybody wants to hear about.
I'm sure Si would have a few up his sleeve if he were here.
You could ask me where are the most beautiful women in the world. You could ask me something about, drug experiences, the best drug experience ever in the history of 40 years.
Where was that?
Well, 15 minutes
Something
ago.
like in a sort of media-friendly sound.
No, I mean, I'm only joking. I mean, not, you know, all drugs are good, you know, some are great. You know, that's the point about... now, strike that from the record. That was a Bill Hicks quote. That was very unfair. He died a sad man with a liver disease. The thing is, be productive, be healthy, be wealthy, and be wise. I mean, basically, we don't want to settle anything less than immortality before we die. But apart from that side, what can you come up with? I mean, what is the money question? What do people want to know, Si?
No, I think we've covered most, haven't we?
I think we covered it like a moss, a fungus. And I just want to say thank you for the invitation of letting me share your mind space. And thanks, Si, and thanks, guys, very much for all this professionality. And we just hope to see you soon at a concert or somewhere. Come up and say hello and introduce yourself. We really would like to meet you. Okay.
Raj, you really should do your own TV
I'm going to do
show.
a book. I'm going to do a book. No, I'd love to do a chat. I'd love to do all of that shit. You know, there's so many things I'd love to do. But being on stage is sort of like a chat show, in a way, because, I mean, the old school of DJs coming out and putting their hand on their ear and doing this, I mean, that's like watching someone with a plow. Seriously, man, you know, I watch DJs all over the world, like the guy comes out and they're really good, like they mix like a bitch, like, you know, dynamite technicians, but, you know, they're pulling all these fucking faces and they got their face down, like, and the crowd never sees them all night. And then you get me, who comes out, I never wear headphones, I never line anything up, I'm just put it with my feet, you know. The whole thing is like, fuck the music, you know, it's all pre-recorded anyhow. What's it take to press the play button? Big deal. I mean, you want to pay me money for pressing the play button? No, you want to pay me money because I want to go out there and get the crowd worked up so they want to come back next time. That's the whole game off it, really. If you don't, you know, you're only as good as your last gig, and you better make your last gig really good, because if you know time is running out or time is running in, depending which part of the mirror you're looking at. What does that mean? Anyhow, it's getting late, as you can tell. I'm getting more incoherent. What was the question? The question was the rituals. Rituals. Forget rituals. We're interested in results. This one, you know this one. This is a really crap trick. This is one I bought on the streets of Brazil for about tuppence. So you get your hand and you put this thing in here. The guy did this in the street. I've never made it actually work. But you get the ribbon, you keep feeding that, you got the ribbon here, Sam. I'm not practiced in this. It's just you keep feeding that ribbon into the hand, right? It can't go very far, can't go very far. I'm nearly there, Si, I'm nearly there. The ribbon's into the hand. You say the magic word, and what happens? It completely disappears. But then you go again and you pull it out off the hand. Thank you, that's the end of the trick.
I got into making music when I got a guitar when I was like 12, and was in bands and stuff at school, and then halfway through my band career at school I found an Oasis SR16 drum machine and realised I could get rid of all the band.
Is that a keyboard?
No, it's like a little thing with pads on. Makes a terrible noise. But I realised I didn't need a band anymore. I could make it all on my own if I started to regret it actually, because I love being in bands. It was yeah, so got into that and then got a Mac, no, an Atari ST to start with. No, it wasn't, it was a Mac Classic. And hooked the drum machine up with that. And then got an Akai SO1 16-second sampler and started making drum and bass records when I was about 17. And then got into drugs and started making trance.
So then the whole, when did the whole Prometheus thing start up? Was it with Sean Williams?
Yeah, the first
Originally.
records I made that were released were with the guy called Sean Williams, who used to be in, or still is I guess, in a band called Process. We hooked up and made a tune called Clarity from Deep Fog, which was called by Prometheus Process. I'd never done a Prometheus track, but At that point we weren't going to start making stuff together full time, so we decided to make a new name. I thought I might call myself Prometheus, so we called it Prometheus Process, and it turned out to be quite a sort of, you know, a light track and stuff. So we then ended up doing an album, but we called the album, we kept the name Process for the album. And then when I finished working with Sean, I went back to the Prometheus stuff and put out my first Prometheus record. Must have been 2 years ago now, and I've just finished the second.
Longer than that, wasn't it?
Maybe it was 3 years. Was it?
What, the album?
Yeah.
I think it was a lot longer than that.
Was it?
And then you had singles previously to that, didn't you?
Yeah, I had singles come out before that. I think first single came out I think in 2001. First Prometheus single, and this album came out in 2003. Everywhere has good nights and bad nights. America is actually most inspiring, I think, at the moment to play, which is odd because I've never enjoyed playing there for years. It's always been, you just haven't really felt like they're into it. You know, you felt like you were playing in a country that wasn't really, you know, wasn't into it, didn't have the energy that places like Japan or South America have. But there's a scene, it's sort of picking up over there, and it'd be really great if it sort of took off properly in America. They're really into the broader term of electronica in America, not just trance or house or breakbeat or ambient. They don't have that thing, so I think it really suits me as an artist, and I think it suits Twisted America a lot because we're not fixed in a genre. So we've been playing festivals with sort of Grateful Dead style bands where they're playing 1 minute, the next minute it's Younger Brother, next minute it's Prometheus or Hallucinogen or something like Static, and then after that it might be a sort of
Sounds great.
funk jazz band, and it's really inspiring stuff.
So what about Japan? You played a few gigs there?
Done loads of Japan, yeah. Japan can be great. My last one in Japan was a bit of a disaster.
Tell us what happened.
I ate a dodgy chicken sandwich in a hotel in Kyoto and got some bug called Campylobacter, which wound me up in a hospital in Tokyo on a drip, completely delirious. Being woken up at 5 in the morning by 6 nurses in pink starched nurse uniforms with Hello Kitty pens in their breast pocket, asking for Younger Brother autographs. And I thought I was something out of the Big Lebowski. I was completely tripped out. I didn't know what was going on. Nobody spoke English, and yeah, it was one of the most surreal moments of my life. Apart from that, it was good, but I did feel rotten. For the seconds, it was sort of, I didn't really have a sort of template of what I wanted to do on the second album, actually. I just thought I was going to make an album of, you know, just keep doing what I like doing, which is making dance tracks that aren't specifically full on or specifically progressive, or they're just, I sort of like to use trance as a real way to experiment with stuff on the effects and synths, try and make some noises. I think it might be a bit of a watershed for me, actually. I think from now on, or the next Prometheus album, I've already actually got quite a sort of firm idea of what I'd like it to be like.
So what other music projects are you involved in, apart from
I'm
the Younger Brother?
got Younger Brother, which we're finishing off, second album for, but you can find out more about that on this DVD, I think. Prometheus, I do sort of odds and sods with lots of different people, you know, one-off tracks. Not as much as I used to. I don't really, not that into doing one-off tracks just for the fun of it anymore. Sort of to keep my energy up for stuff that I've got more of a commitment to. I produce a few bands, my favourite of which is probably a band called the æIÆm, who I did their last album for and doing their singles and sort of kind of just done a new single for them, and it seems to be doing pretty well, their stuff as well. Doing stuff with some folk singers, and then I've set up a new project of my own stuff which I'm going to release under my own name. Would you like to hear some?
Love to.
Which is...
Have you got a name for the project yet?
No, I'm actually thinking of calling it under my name, calling it, you know, Ben Vaughan or Benji Vaughan or whatever, because that's sort of what it is. It's not really, I don't want to hide behind yet another moniker, because this really is just me making music that I like, not trying to fit into a genre or be a kind of mysterious techno person on it. Got a younger brother one. I haven't set up a Prometheus one yet. I'm going to set up a new one for this new album I'm working on.
But you spend a lot of time sort of surfing through other people's pages and...
Yeah, I've got a guy coming in later this afternoon who I known him for years, but I hadn't sort of been in touch with him. He does he doesn't do rapping. He's a sort of poet, singer guy, sort of more speaking lyric thing. He's a really talented guy, but anyway, he sort of went off the rails a bit and disappeared. And I found him on MySpace last week. Got in touch with him and got him coming in to do some stuff on this track later this afternoon, which is a great example of MySpace sort of working as a community. I love all that stuff. It's a great way of getting out there and bypassing. It raises the artist's sort of potential power up over, you know, before the only way to market was to cost fortunes and go through expensive companies and stuff. And obviously, because everyone can do it, there's tons out there. So you've got to make a way of making your sound or what you do sort of rise above the foam. But that's what we're all trying to do. But it's a pretty fair, good way of hopefully making the cream rise to the top, which I don't think the record business generally is. I mean, the turds rise to the top. In the trance scene, I'd like to make a track with Extreme. They've always been favourites of mine. I've never met them actually, I think. But I'd like to do a track with them. I've always admired their stuff. And then in the wider musical sphere, a lot of singers I'd love to do a track with Bjork. Love to do a track with a girl called Joanna Newsom. Love to do a track with Tom York. Lots of the Orcs, Bjork and Tom York. I'd love to do actually, I don't think I would like to do something with Brian, you know, he'd probably bore me to death with theories all day. But it'd be quite nice to meet him and sort of have a fiddle about in the studio with him. Yeah, there's lots of people out there I'd like to make music with. But I'm working with good people at the moment. I'm pleased with who I'm working with at the moment. I've got some good friends and collaborators at the moment.
Well, we've been planning for this baby for about 6 months, and I told you that the only way I wasn't going to be at the party was if the baby turned up while I was supposed to be playing. The only circumstances I wasn't going to turn up at the party, and she started pushing at 4 at the time I was supposed to be on, and the baby popped out at 2 minutes past 6, 2 minutes after I was supposed to be off. So the baby turned up with absolute total precision.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, and it was great. Actually, I've just moved in here. This is the first tune I've done in this studio. It's only been built for about a month. It used to be a smelly old garage full of Volkswagen camper bits, and then the baby turned up and I had to get the studio out of the house to make a bit of room. So I spent £1,000 on wood and rock wool and built this. And so it always takes a little while to settle into your new space. And I've been working on this tune for about a month now. And yeah, getting into the sound of the room and stuff, and should be finished by the end of the week, I hope. One of the most memorable moments was the Shpongle gig in Japan, actually, because there was about 10,000 people. It was New Year's Eve 2004, Shpongle live, and I'm sort of helping out on stage, mixing the live instruments. And about 2 hours before the gig starts, someone says, "Here, Ott, do you want to play a few tunes just before we come on?" And I'm thinking, yeah, just go out, stick a CD on, you know, just to warm them up. And so gets to about an hour before Shpongle's supposed to be coming on, and I find me CDs, and I've just got a small handful of CDs. And I go out onto the stage, and there's 10,000 people, 10,000 enthusiastic Japanese music punters standing there like that. Somebody moves on stage, and they erupt into this cheer, and I'm thinking, oh no, they think I'm Shpongle. They're going to be really disappointed. So I get up and think, I'm going to put Jack's cheese and bread snack on, and it does its little thing at the beginning, and you get this little ripple of excitement. And they're all standing there really patiently waiting, and as soon as the drums dropped, the place exploded. It was the first bit of music they'd heard all night, and they were all sort of hyped up for this massive party. And I've never heard a cheer like it. I nearly fell off my little ladder. I was up this ladder behind the decks. And that was quite a memorable moment. It's the bits in between that freak me out, like in Brazil. I've been in the country 3 hours and I was pinned to the floor by 10 armed policemen with guns in my head and feet in the back of my neck, and not speaking a word of Portuguese, and they're all shouting at me in Portuguese, and I'm going, English, English, don't kill me. And I've got guns there, like, searching me for drugs, which thankfully I didn't have any. Yeah, all that's a bit scary.
Is it true that you go all weird when you're exposed to music over 105 BPM?
I don't go all weird when I'm exposed to music over 105 BPM, I just go home. Not my scene at all, really. I'm too old for all that now. As you can see, I'm built for comfort, not speed. Never been much of a dancer. Not to that stuff. You know,
So the Hikikomori track, that was you, wasn't it?
that was me, yeah. See, I don't think that it's possible to dance to trance music without looking like you've shit your trousers.
Because last time I chatted to you, you were mentioning something about maybe doing a trance album on your own.
Yeah. I thought about it, and eventually I came to the conclusion that economically it's probably a good decision, but artistically I think I'd rather shit my own pants. If my heart's not in it, I'm going to do a bad job. And it just suddenly occurred to me, I was out there doing my chill out gigs and thinking, cool, if I made a trance record, I'd get twice the money. And so I went home and thought about it, and then thought, no, it's a really terrible idea. It's a really dreadful idea. A, my heart wouldn't be in it, and I'd be selling my arse to the devil. And B, I'd have to play it for the next 3 years and probably lose the will to live. I have got a name for it, but I'm keeping it Stum.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, I've got a great name for it, and I like it, and every time I think about it, I really like it.
Well, when do you reckon it's going to be released?
Well, we just had the baby, and I've just moved into the new studio, so...
Is things slowly getting back to normal?
Things are getting back to normal. We're all developing a nice little routine, and...
When does Ott get back in the studio? And
Well, he's back in the studio now, because we've got this great... Because we're breastfeeding on demand, see, so the baby needs feeding every 2 hours.
Okay.
Which means Zoe never gets more than 2 hours sleep. You what?
Okay. Just wondering what that thing was on the corner of the...
Oh, that?
That's not part of the doper, is it?
No, that's not part of the doper. That's my baby monitor. So what happens is I get up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, come out here and do my work. Meanwhile, Zoe's looking after the baby. And then it gets to 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm looking after the baby. The baby's asleep in the house, and I'm in here with the baby monitor on. And so when she wakes up for her 2 o'clock feed, I go over and do it. So it gives Zoe like 5 hours uninterrupted sleep, 6 hours uninterrupted sleep, and it makes it worth it. It makes it all workable. So I'm forced into the studio, and she gets a bit of kip, and it works a treat. And I bring the baby over here and let her listen to what I've been doing, and she cries and shits her nappy, which I take as a good sign, obviously. If you play your new tune to someone and they shit themselves, I think you can take that as an affirmative. It means it's good. It means it's got enough bass. I sit her on the subwoofer and it gives her a little colon to clear out.
Has it got more of that...
Yeah, you love it, don't you?
What do I call it? Huckleberry Finn?
You call it the Huckleberry Finn noise, and you swore blind that if ever I used it on another record, you wouldn't release it. Which has gutted me, because I love it.
How does it sound?
And so on, and I love it. Haunting little sound. But Simon hates it, don't you, Simon? Don't you, Simon?
Well, it's not my favourite instrument. The name Ott means OTT, like as in over the top, you know. Is that true?
No,
Where
it's
does
not.
Where does the name Ott come from?
Can we clear this up once
Is
and
your
for all,
name
please?
actually Ott?
My name is Ott. If you look on, where's my fucking credit card? No, if I had it here, I'd show you. My name is Ott. Ott, not O-T-T.
What does it say on your passport?
It says Ott. It's Ott, O-T-T, not O-T-T, not over the top. It's Ott. It was 1968. Hippie parents. There was a lot of it about. You know, I could have been Moon Unit or fucking Dweezil or something. I got off quite lightly, I think. But it's Ott. It's not O-T-T. It doesn't stand for anything. Don't write it in all capitals because that just confuses people. It's O, little t, full stop. That's it. Thank you.
It started with partying. That's the main thing. I went travelling, discovered psychedelics and dance music in Australia in 1989.
In Australia?
In Australia, they were doing these parties called the Rat Parties in the Hordern Pavilion in Sydney. And it wasn't just trance or house or anything, it was hip-hop, transvestites, ravers, nutters, all sorts, every walk of life, playing at these parties. And we went there, discovered mind alteration and expansion, and then got back to the UK, realised all my mates were over here doing exactly the same thing. It had been a global explosion at the end of the 80s and beginning of the 90s. And so we just carried on partying, going to all the parties. And then I remember looking up at DJs and growing concern, thinking, I think I could do that. You know what, I reckon I'll give that a spin. So I went out and bought a pair of Technics BD SL22 belt drive turntables. And they were about 85 quid from Richer Sounds or something, cheap and nasty.
Did they have pitch control?
Pitch control, but they're not direct drive, they're belt.
Wow.
So you touch it and it goes...
Elastic band.
Elastic band, basically. And you've got to crank start them. And started buying some tunes. You know, when you're becoming a DJ, back in the day when you had to go and buy a vinyl before anyone would send you music and all that, you'd have to go in and get in with a local record shop. So the guy would keep music for you and he would always palm you off with a load of shit as well. And go home, spend every penny I had on records and started DJing.
So
and then
were you a DJ sort of pre-trance?
Yes,
as well.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. So from '89 to '93, I was DJing, and you know, the only place you start is in your bedroom. A few mates smoking an eighth of bad hash a week, and desperate to get an audience. So the best way to do it is put on parties. So we put on parties. A friend of mine, I was at university in Warwick, and a friend of mine, his dad owned a factory making plumbing fittings. And we'd break in there at night and put on a party for about 100 people, and we'd have to be out by 8 in the morning. And this factory had 800-ton presses and kind of weird brass cutting fittings. So it'd be these huge trays full of brass ingots and mad industrial zone. We'd bust in and get off our tits and make a punch and bash out music, dance like nutters, and then sweep up and get out as the workers were coming in the morning. And we did that for a couple of years, and then I that kind of news spread that there were these underground parties going on that I was putting on, and a guy called Tom from Space Hopper turned up to one of them, and he happened to be doing the same thing but in a venue called the Q Club, which was an old Methodist church. Fantastic venue, best venue in England. The seats around the outside, kind of, you know, up
where is it? Birmingham?
In Birmingham, the Q Club,
yeah.
Corporation Street, and you fit about 2,500 people in there. And over a period of 2 years, we built it up from 200 to 2,500. And we're getting Eat Static there. That was their regular horn. All the big trance names. And that was my first residency, and that was my first proper kind of break. That got me out of the bedroom and the illegal parties into the kind of mainstream. And then it just kind of, like anything, you've got to stick at it. You think you've broken it, and it takes another 3 years before you get an international gig. And I think in 94, 95, I went out to Paris to play a gig. At the end of the gig, they left me stranded. It was a warehouse, and
who was the promoter?
I don't know, but I went with Lestat, Talamasca. And at the end of the party, everyone cleared. They cleared out the sound system. The guy, the promoter, said, "Right, I'm just going to drop the sound system off. I'll come back and pick you up." An hour and a half later, in the suburbs of France, nowhere to be seen. Left me roasting there like an idiot. Finally appeared. So it's not all not all rocking parties and good times. And then from there, playing the music, DJing, listening to it, there'd always be bits in the songs that I think, yeah, that's killer. There's a bit in that, why does the tune finally do that? Why does it? Frustration, basically, that led me to think, you know what, I could probably do that. I could make music. I'll give it a spin. So this was when you had to write on an Atari and a sampler which would have about 30 seconds of audio sample time. Now you've got hours, unlimited. So in those days you needed racks and racks of old synthesizers which you'd need to play live because you couldn't record anything down and play it back. So the studios involved kind of building up all these vintage antiques. It was like living in a museum. And that carried on, and I was living in Leamington Spa at the time. There was a really good scene in Leamington in about 93, 94. It was Man Made Man and Andy Guthrie, who was 100th Monkey, Banco de Gaia doing ambient music, myself, 21-3 Records, and Andy Guthrie was working with Tsuyoshi and Eat Static. So there was a real buzz going on at that time. And I carried on working there until, I think it was, 96? And I wrote a tune called Martian Arts, which I think Dixter heard, and he said, "Oh no, why don't you play that to the boys down at Twisted?" So he played it. I got a call from Simon, "Yeah, we like it, mate, we're going to put it out." And so 96, that was, I think, the first release that you guys did.
Pretty much.
Was Martian Arts, yeah, 10 years ago. So not only was it Twisted 10-year birthday, but my kind of anniversary with them as well. Japan has been consistently good since we went out there in 97 or something with Solstice Music, and we've been out there at least twice a year. Good Twisted tour. There's a great fan base over there. We love the Japanese. They are mad psychedelic cowboys and girls. So that's always been a good one. Somewhere at the moment is Brazil. That's really mushrooming, going mad. I played at a party there, 20,000 people dancing to one kick drum. You get on, it's just to see bronzed bodies, amazing. And I don't know why, it's such a huge country and they've got plenty of outdoor space and dances in their culture. So that's also a good one. That's what's really pumping right now.
Are you playing live down there or
Live.
DJ?
Doing my live down there, yeah. And working for an organisation called Tribe, and they're quite good. You get in with one good promoter there and you stick to them, because there's a lot of cowboys. In anywhere you go, there's a lot of cowboys. So what I've always tried to do is find a good promoter, build up a really good portfolio of promoters. For any aspiring DJs out there, don't go and play for anyone just because they ring. You know, check them out, find out who they are, what parties they've done, who have gone to play them for them before. And if you find someone, stick with them and build and grow, like we did with Solstice Twisted. We built up from smaller parties until we were doing parties for 3,000-4,000 people, just me, Simon and Benji. And you know, until I had one in each country, region, you know, one Australia, Japan, Germany. And you only need to get 2 bookings a year from each of those, and your diary's full, and you're only working with people you know that put on the killer parties, good production, good sound system, a great crowd, and they look after you well. You know, it sounds very glorious doing all these gigs, air travel, that is good, I'm not complaining, but if you get there and the Muppet doesn't pick you up for an hour and a half, and you've had an 8-hour flight, and then you don't get to eat, and the hotel's absolutely shitty next to some unbuilt factory going on, and normally happens in Athens, it becomes a pain in the arse, you know. And if you want to do this for a long period of time, you've got to make sure you love every part of what you do and not just the good bits. I was always the twisted DJ, that was my thing, but obviously you released plenty of singles on all the comps, my mix CD, the Twisted Sessions. But that was my main role, was the DJ, going out, playing the twisted music, flying the flag. And I don't know, it was over the past 7 or 8 years I've hammered my ears a lot of partying, a lot of sound systems, long DJ sets without giving my ears a break. And I began to notice that I was getting ringing in my right ear, which is the ear I use for monitoring when I'm DJing. Left ear for my headphones and right for the speaker. And when you're DJing and you're trying to synchronize the beats and you match them, you really need to focus on both ears, and the sound system's pumping out there, so you need this loud. Normally this is running on a secondary amp, low quality, the speaker's distorting, it's distorted frequencies that can damage your ears. I began to notice that I was getting tinnitus in my ear. I had my ears checked, the hearing's fine, but I was getting kind of aggravated ringing, so I'd go to bed at night and went, woo! Most people have had it after a party, we all know what that's like, but the thought of having that permanent all the time was began to scare the shit out of me. So I decided, well, hard thing to do, but I'm going to stop DJing for a while, take a hiatus and focus on the live stuff. And the difference between live and DJing, why that has a different impact on your ears, is when you're doing a live, you need to just focus on the sound of the whole mix instead of just the beats. So you can just listen to the stage monitoring, which can be further away, it can be quieter or louder if you like, and you're just governing the overall sound of the tracks, which is far less invasive on the ears. So I decided, right, I'll do that, and that was a tough decision to make for me, to give up DJing. But it was one of the best things I've ever done, because it meant I focused on my own music, my production. I didn't have to wade through hours and hours of other people's music. I mean, I still listen to a lot for inspiration, but that takes a lot of time, a lot of energy and a lot of focus from what I was trying to do, and that was write my own sound and write my own music. And the thing is, in my DJ sets I was always playing at least 30% of my own music anyway, but just kind of hiding, not stepping forward and saying, this is my music, this is what I do, and being a bit shy about it. And finally I was forced to step up to the plate, right, this is the Tristan sound, you're familiar with it anyway, but this is just my music. And since I've done that, the production, on the next album, which is coming up, Chemisphere, suddenly, the sound, you can hear it. You can hear it's more detailed, more focused. The vibe that I'm trying to achieve has come through. And that probably wouldn't have happened if I hadn't given up the DJing. So it was a tough one, but sometimes decisions which steer you in the right direction are made for you, which is what happened.
I think the Coxbox story kind of started mid-80s. We got a radio station in Denmark, and I was half partner on this radio station, playing all this new beat, acid beat, hard beat came up in that time. And we made a program Thursday night, 4 hours every Thursday night, called Coxbox. In the end it became called Coxbox.
Just DJing?
Just DJing, but doing all the new style, like electronic music, keyboards coming in with a rock and roll. And already at that time we was listening a lot to Klaus Schulze, Tranquility Dreams, Kraftwerk, and all this old stuff, which really was the start of the whole story what we're doing now, as I see it. And we had this program for a couple of years, and through the program the name Coxbox came up. And a few years later I started a band up with a guy called Peter, and we made Coxbox, and that was probably in 88, yeah. I remember winter time 89, I got the first 5 Coxbox tracks around.
Really?
Yeah.
And they with Ian, or?
That was basically with Peter. Ian, I met. Ian was more like a partner in production way, because at that time he was in part of Overlords, and we got a studio together, so he was more kind of the guy coming in and producing, because both me and Ian coming from the real band. We've been playing guitar and bass and drums, so we're coming from this side, and suddenly, all this button to push, it's a different story. So we used him a lot in the beginning to the production, and slowly Ian came in. But no, the first album, even the first 6 releases on the first album, even Ian was just doing the producing on the album basically. It was me and Ian, Peter, who did everything. Ian, he came into the project more like the third part of Coxbox, and we got releases out. We were on a Hard House after we went on Blue Room in London, which was a very good label at that time. We was around Germany from Novatech. Second time we went to Germany, and we started releasing with different labels around. Like the Japanese label, suddenly, like it was not only a European thing, suddenly the trance became very big and went out to the rest of the world, and some labels came up there as well.
And what I'm doing is I'm taking some of the techniques that I've developed is in ambient and spaced out down tempo stuff, and we're going through some of that to see what can work. And being a guitarist, the main angle of integration is we're using the guitar as almost as a controller through a long complicated effect chain to make an awesome plethora of psychedelic sounds and features. A lot of it is atonal and arrhythmical, but it works very well with integrating into what the Coxbox story already is. So that's how I see it. I'm an addition to the already fast running and well working machine. Yeah, we're doing it. This is more on the side of the on the Coxbox story, because Coxbox is a dance floor orientated material.
Sure, yeah.
And this is going to be for after the dance floor, or very early in the evening before dancing commences. And that is my main field, and has been for many years. And what we have here between us is the ability to do something in that field that will be that will go a lot deeper than what I can usually expect to deliver, in a sense of when you keep in mind the kind of people that we are, members of the clan and so forth, traveling mind. So this new project, we're still in experimental stages. We're experimenting, saturating our experiments in different directions in order to see what we find interesting, and we're still in the formulation stage of this project.
And I think the very interesting part in this project, not only in this project but also in Coxbox, is we are both real musicians in playing instruments. So this is also the new thing we are bringing into this story now. It's not only MIDI and keyboard. We're going to bring it in. I'm not sure you're going to hear which instrument, because we changed on the way, but it's going to be the real instrument, and we think that's very exciting to bring this into the MIDI world a lot more, because it can be a little bit square, the music sometimes, and we really want to see if we can open these things up. I think that's very exciting, actually.
The very narrow line between the acoustic and the electronic, and try to get to get as much acoustic light out of the electronic and get the acoustic as electronic as possible.
And at the same time,
into each other.
Yeah, and at the same time try to bring this up on stage as well. So it's like we're playing the thing up on stage, we're doing the show on stage, which I think today people need more and more. Something's going up on stage instead of just, open your laptop.
So there's just some guy behind the mixing desk.
Yeah. People want to see the giraffe, the elephant up there. Something. It's a bit a hard question. It's a difficult question, because the scene is changing so much. So there's always one country who's picking up, and that's the best country right now. Sure, Brazil is the best, and blasting there with 30,000 people in the party. So that's the best now. A couple of years ago it was Japan, and Japan had been good for many years, and even a few years before that it was Mexico was rocking like hell. So it's changing all the time.
We started it in '94. I think '93. Met Christophe in a rave party in Paris, and we were pretty high, and we decided to do a psychedelic. We decided to do a techno band. Not psychedelic, was not existing. Everything used to be parties, everything, all styles combined inside, starting quite drum and bass, and then trance, and then finishing hardcore. And we had no equipment. I just had one sampler. He got the same sampler, so it was easy for us to write a track, and then I would give him the disc, the floppy disk, and he would continue it like this. These times were before the internet, so you know, he used to send me the disc by post, and I used to load all the
the 1 megatari discs?
Yeah, 1 megapon 44. That was the HD floppy disk. Wow, what are we gonna do with all this space, you know? And we got quite successful, really fast. Start to play a lot in France, and then around the world really fast. And we released in 2 years. The story of Transwave is finished. After 2 years, we just decided to split up, and only recently, when basically Christophe moved to Ibiza, we start to write some more music, and we are in the process of doing another album right now. It's going really slowly, the process, because he is very busy and I am very busy with my own project, GBU and all that. But definitely, I think end of March is going to be finished. So we have a compilation CD coming out now, which is called Backfire, which is a best of Transwave. So.
And that's on Christophe's label, right?
No, and that's on a label called Unreleased that we produced together. Basically, so this is called Backfire, and then there's gonna be Frontfire, which is a CD of remix from the tracks of Backfire, made by friends, you know, Soundkite, people like this, Hallucinogen, hopefully, Coxbox, made remix of Transwave songs, and then the album is gonna come, I think, in the middle of the year. It's gonna be available. Yeah, we put a lot of time and work in this album to make it as we'd like it to be. I would say Martin Gore from Depeche Mode is melodic, is influenced me a lot on the melodic side of composition. And then for psychedelic trance artists, Martin Friel and Simon Pasford, Jyoti Sidhu are my main influence from the start. I used to be a huge fan of their music, listen to their music for hours, trying to figure out how they did, and trying to do the same and basically copy these guys. And then because you can't copy it proper, then it starts to be your own style. That's what I believe. So they were really a big influence. And then you sort of, after the year, you have your own sound, and you see, I'm trying to develop this again and again. I still think that I'm just starting my career, so I just don't know which direction I'm going to be in the future. If I'm going to still be a touring artist, or if I'm going to do more production. Like this year, I'm going to start produce some other people, a bit more. Put a bit more time to produce some other people.
Just mixing their albums and stuff.
Yeah. Try to have their sound proper
artists
done in the studio. That we are building another studio next door for this.
We're going to have a look at that in a minute.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's going to be like surround sound and everything. Also, we're going to be producing music for movies and stuff.
Wow.
The last one, always. Well, it's always moving. It's just the last one, and then it's going to be the last one, and it's going to be the last one. But I'm not really the biggest fan of my music, to be honest. So as soon as a track is recorded, I don't like it anymore.
You don't listen to it anymore?
No. And then after a few years, when I completely forgot about how I did it, then I start to like it. And there is one track of Transwave I really like. It's called Cycles of Life, and I'm really proud of this one. And for æDerangerÄ, I don't know if there is a favorite track. Synthetic also, Metal Gear. I like Metal Gear. It was a big change in my music.
Metal Gear was a big track, wasn't it?
Yeah, I like it a lot. A bit unbearable sound. That's what I like. You know, a lot of energy. This is the GBU album.
The GBU.
And there's going to be the Federico album, which is out in January, which is called Bellez, or something. It took me 6 years to do, I'm very proud of this album.
This is the Downbeat project, right?
Yeah, it's mostly kind of jazz loops with real instruments, and I love it.
Cool.
Buy it.